with Barb Switzer. And Barb, you are an expert wire wrapper. You have a great tip for us for an easy project today.
I do. These are really quick to put together. It only takes a couple minutes, and we're working with some very easy to find 8mm round beads.
Some of my favorites.
Yeah, you can find them everywhere, and they're available semi-precious, glass, faceted, crystal, whatever you're looking for, you can find it in an 8mm bead.
Pick your favorite color and get started.
Yeah, and make a whole bunch.
There you go. You have to have a stack.
That's right.
Okay, so which kind of wire are we using?
We're going to use a 24 gauge, and in this case I'm going to use a nice colored wire.
Okay.
Partly because it's easier to see on camera, and partly because there is nothing more fun than colored wire. I really love it. It adds a little element, and we're leaving a lot of exposed wire on this piece, so it's nice if it's pretty.
Definitely, make it coordinating, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to start out with about a wingspan of wire. So I'm about 5 feet tall, so you want about 5 feet of wire.
I like your measurement system here. This is right up my alley.
Yeah, I'm not real specific. You don't have to be precise on the measurement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to put the two ends together, and then I'm just going to gently slide the wire through my fingers until I get to the middle. So I make kind of a little loop at the center.
All right.
And then the next thing you know, I'm going to slide this through so that one half is in the inside of the bracelet cuff and the other half is on the outside. I'm holding the half on the outside in my non-dominant hand, and then I'm going to do one full wrap with my dominant hand and pull it back through the middle of the bracelet.
Okay, and we should mention that this is a channel bangle. So
yeah.
It has a little bit of a divot in the surface there the beads will nestle right in there.
Yeah, but they pop right down in there, which is nice. They wear a little bit nicer.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's also, this way you can put a round bead on it. If you're working on a flat bracelet, it's rather difficult to get the beads to sit on in a nice, neat fashion. So the round beads really are the superior choice for this type of design. So now I'm sliding the bead down on this wire, and I'm just simply going to pull it across, pull the wire through the center, pull it back out around, and I'm going to leave one nice bare wrap next to that bead. And you can see I kind of work at a little bit of a diagonal here. And I always, before I put on my next bead, I pull that wire down and flat across the bangle just to pre-shape it so that when you do slide the bead into position here, that wire is much more manageable.
Oh yeah, you don't have to kind of fight with
wire has a memory.
Right.
So if you put it in a place, even if you pull it back out, when you put it back, it's going to remember that spot where it had been before. So.
Sure. And you could use different gauges of wire. You're using 24 gauge, but could you do this with something thicker if you wanted more wire to be exposed? Or do you find that this particular gauge is perfect because of all this wrapping that you're doing?
It's really easiest to do this, partly because we're working with a really long piece of wire, and wire hardens as you work with it. It's called work hardening. And so every time you pull on this wire, you're hardening it. You'll also notice that I'm not pulling my wire all the way out at the end. I'm working very, very close to what I'm working on. Yeah. You could do this with 24 or probably 22 gauge wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So. All right, so you would work your way all the way around to the end, and how would you then finish?
So at the end, what you're going to do, and I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate it with this side because this works perfectly fine. At the end, you're going to put your wire back through the last bead. So you're going to kind of cross back over.
Oh, okay.
You kind of X back toward your last bead. You're going to run that wire.
So you're kind of anchoring it.
Yeah, going back through the bead one more time. And then, because ultimately you'll be working with a shorter wire when you do this, so I'm just going to cut this wire short.
Okay.
And then I'm going to, and this is a lot like making a wire wrap on a wire wrapped loop, I'm just going to tuck underneath the wire that's already coming through that bead. It's generally easy to grab it and pull it with your chain nose.
Sure.
And wrap it at least once. We'll anchor it. I usually wrap it 2 or 3 times just because I do.
Well, it makes it very secure, and then your end isn't hanging out and liable to snag on anything either.
Exactly. And when you go to cut that wire, I kind of push everything out of the way, and sneak my cutter in there as close as I can get to that bead and trim that wire end off. And as a rule, it's tucked down neatly. If you feel the wire end poking up at all, just take your chain nose and squeeze that end down.
Okay.
And that will keep it in position.
All right, and so what about if you want to add a focal element?
If you want to add a focal element to this, what I normally do is I start with that focal element. So I'm going to cut about, it's usually better to work with a slightly longer piece than what you need.
Right?
Yeah, you never want to run out. So especially when you're working with craft wire, it's not expensive. You might as well cut that longer piece and save yourself the trouble of having to restart. So at least 8 to 10 inches of wire. And then I'm going to take this, the bracelet cuff form, leave one little tail, pull the wire up. And this is the same sort of wrap that we did on the end of that other piece.
Oh yeah, but you do this one to start in this case.
Yeah, because what we're really doing is we're anchoring it back behind the element that I'm going to add.
Okay, and we should mention that this is a slider component. So normally this is something that you would use on a double strand necklace or bracelet, but in this case you're using it as a focal element on your bracelet.
Exactly. These are really versatile pieces and you can use them for a lot of different things. And you know, they're very appealing. It's hard not to want to put them into some other designs.
Definitely.
So you can see I've just basically got this sitting on the back of the piece and I'm going to run the wire out through the hole in the slider.
And then maybe you can show us on the finished one too how it's crisscrossed on the back.
Exactly. Let me get this in there. So now, once I've got that on there, I'm actually going to pull the wire across to the opposite side. And this is when I pull it across on the diagonal.
Okay.
Because it anchors a little bit more tightly because we're anchoring it down to something that's curved, so.
Right. Oh, I see.
Yeah. So you can see I just sneak it across. And again, if the wire is catching up like that, just push it out of the way and pull it with your chain nose. We're not real worried behind this piece about it looking pretty.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be
pretty
attached. Right. It just has to be solidly anchored in place. You won't be able to see this part unless you take the bracelet off and show it to someone.
And you brought some beautiful finished samples. You have one that has the focal element with beads, and then you have a couple just with the focal element. These are great ideas, Barb. Thank you.